Hey there, Taylor Elwood here, your business wizard for eccentric entrepreneurs. And today I'm going to talk about how to delegate responsibilities in your business, whether you are a solopreneur or a business owner with employees. Now, most people who are solopreneurs would probably think that you would never have to delegate responsibilities. After all, you're the only one working in the business. But I disagree with that because there are going to be times where you're going to hire somebody. For example, I hired a photographer today to do some new business headshots for me. Obviously, that would be an example of delegating responsibility to someone. Now it's a little different when you have employees because they work for you directly. They're not just people that are being hired for a brief moment. They're being hired for the long term. But I think the same principles apply. So when you have a business where you're getting ready to delegate, it's really important that you think of a few different things. And the first thing that you want to think about is how to delegate the actual responsibilities in terms of like what you want people to do. Like what are the roles that you want people to fulfill? And I'll give you an example. When one of the clients I worked with for a while was an accountant, and he had a small office staff. And one of the biggest problems that he had was that nobody in that office staff really knew what they were supposed to be doing. They were all over the place. So you had people who were basically tripping over each other, doing things that other people thought they were supposed to be doing, and as you can imagine, it was a lot of chaos. And it also made it hard for them to get their deliverables done for the clients. So what we did is we actually spent some time figuring out, okay, who has what role? And what are the responsibilities for those roles? And when do those responsibilities get handed off to someone else? Once that was figured out, their workflow became a lot better because each person was doing the specific tasks they were supposed to do, and they knew when to hand work off to somebody else. They knew what the next when work needed to go up or down the chain, as it were, to get where it needed to go. And here's something that a lot of business owners don't think about also when they're coming up with roles and responsibilities. They'll take a top-down approach. They'll think, well, I'm telling them to go do this, and that's all there is to it. But the reality is that even when you come up with roles and responsibilities, one thing you have to think of is the fact that people are going to still have to, that are working for you, are sometimes going to need to send work back to you, or going to need to give you something. So when you're defining those roles and responsibilities, you also want to define the roles and responsibilities for yourself. And recognize that you are taking on certain roles and responsibilities as a business owner, and knowing when to hand work off, but also knowing when to expect work from people, so that things get done in a seamless manner. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing that I always recommend considering is behavior. Because at the end of the day with your business, you always want to be thinking about behavior. In the business productivity plan method, which I teach to different business owners, one of the things we look at is setting up systems around how you automate and delegate your business. And what we end up doing is, or what we've ended up finding is that when you don't have the right systems in place, it's typically in part because you don't understand the behaviors that are expected. Because the whole purpose of anything, like if you're delegating work to someone or you're doing something else along those lines, you always have to think about what the end result is going to be. And the end result is always going to be behavioral. So you want to think about, like, what is the behavioral outcome that I want this person to accomplish when you're delegating that work? So it's not even just a matter of defining the roles and responsibilities, but it's also understanding the behaviors that are involved and making sure that the people involved understand the behaviors and plan accordingly. The other thing that I always think goes hand in hand with this is that, let's say you are hiring somebody on as an employee or as a contractor. You want to make sure they understand your vision. Now, as someone who's occasionally hired people because they were friends or because I was trying to help somebody out, I'll tell you, it's one of the worst mistakes you can make. When you're delegating responsibilities to somebody, whether it's a contractor or employee, you want to make sure they really truly understand your vision of what you're trying to do. For example, today when I hired the photographer, well, I didn't hire the photographer today, I hired her a few days ago, but when I went through the process of hiring her, I had about 10 different photographers that I was looking at. And the first few I just got rid of because they were recommended to me, but they weren't necessarily a good fit for what I was trying to do. Yeah, I appreciated the recommendation, but wasn't going to be what I needed. Then I looked through like the next, like it got down to 6, and I got rid of 4 of them right away because when I looked at what they did and how they presented what they were doing in terms of professional headshots, I knew they weren't going to get me, and I needed them to understand me and understand what I needed from them as a business wizard for eccentric entrepreneurs. So it came down to the last 2, and they were pretty close. But I looked at them each, and what I ultimately decided on is I decided on the one person. I called her up, and I had a conversation with her for about 10 minutes, and by minute 3 I knew for sure that she was the one I was going to go with. Or maybe it was minute 5, but either way, it was one of those minutes. I knew that she was the person I was going to go with because she got me, and I knew that I could trust her to really capture my essence and who I am and show that in the best possible light, which is important with photography. The point is, though, is I had to define that responsibility and know what the expected behavior was ahead of time. And if I didn't go in there with that, I could have hired just any old photographer, and that wouldn't have necessarily helped me. So it's really important to think about that and to recognize what you really want when it comes to an outcome from somebody. And I think the other thing to really consider is that when it comes to how you conduct the way you approach things, you want to really consider carefully, like, am I going to show up in a way that is going to make sense to the people involved? If I'm going to delegate responsibilities, I need to make sure that I'm really crystal clear and focused and can explain to them what I want from them. If you're having trouble explaining what you want from them, then it's hard for them to really get on board and do the work that you expect of them. So that's another thing an important thing to consider. Now, I want to mention that if you're someone who's considering how to delegate and how to get people to share responsibilities, I do have a free 7-day challenge called the Business Productivity Bootcamp. And one of the things that we explore is we start to explore how to plan your business by design. And that includes planning how to delegate responsibilities to other people. So if you're interested in that, check out the link below. And if you want to get notified when I go live on Facebook, then check out that link as well. And you can get subscribed, and then that way you'll get notified when I go live. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.